Leonard arrived at Hollowmere at dusk, though no road sign had warned him of its existence, and even later he would never remember making the turn that led him there. One moment he was driving through endless fog, the road stretching forward like a pale ribbon, and the next, the fog thinned unnaturally, parting as if guided by unseen hands, revealing a village crouched between crooked hills. The air changed the instant he stepped out of the car, not colder or warmer, but heavier, saturated with age and memory, pressing against his lungs as though the land itself was testing whether he belonged. Stone houses leaned inward at odd angles, their windows dark and matte, swallowing light rather than reflecting it. No animals stirred, no insects hummed. Even the wind hesitated, crawling sluggishly between buildings before giving up entirely. The sound of Leonard's car door closing echoed far too long, bouncing unnaturally, as if the village had more space inside it than it should. Figures watched him from doorways and behind thin curtains, their faces pale, lined not with fear, but with exhaustion, the kind that comes from generations of waiting. None of them greeted him. None asked his name. When he walked toward the center of the village, he noticed the well, ancient stone, cracked and worn smooth by time, and carved into its surface was a symbol that made his stomach tighten for reasons he couldn't explain. A spiral intersected by jagged, branching lines, almost like roots piercing an eye. Once he noticed it, he saw it everywhere, etched faintly into door frames, carved into wooden beams, scratched into lantern posts, even worn into the ground where countless feet had passed over it. As night descended far too quickly, lanterns flickered to life one by one, glowing an unhealthy green that stretched shadows in impossible directions, shadows that bent and curved independently of their owners. Leonard felt watched, not by eyes, but by attention itself, as if the village was aware of him in a way people should not be. He stayed the night at the only inn, though sleep came in broken fragments, filled with dreams of roots burrowing beneath his skin and vast hollow trees whispering his name despite the fact he had never spoken it aloud. When morning arrived, it felt artificial, pale light filtering down like a reluctant concession. The villagers seemed relieved to see him alive, too relieved. Over a sparse breakfast, the innkeeper finally spoke, her voice dry and brittle. "Hollowmere borders Hollowroot," she said, gesturing toward the forest looming far too close to the village edge, its trees thick and twisted, their canopies blocking the sky like a clenched fist. The forest was older than the village, older than memory. It gave protection, fertile land, safety from storms, disease, and famine, but it demanded balance. Leonard noticed her hands trembling as she spoke, the way her eyes never lingered on the windows. Throughout the day, fragments of truth surfaced. Every few decades, the forest marked someone, not chosen by the people, chosen by the forest itself. The mark appeared without warning, sometimes on flesh, sometimes beneath it, sometimes in places that could not be seen at all. Those marked were not killed, they were drawn, compelled. They walked into Hollowroot willingly or screaming, and they never returned. Leonard tried to dismiss it as folklore until the heat bloomed suddenly in his chest, sharp and crushing, like something pressing outward from inside him. When he pulled his shirt aside, the symbol stared back at him, perfect and fresh, faintly pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Panic spread through Hollowmere like a silent disease. People avoided him now. No one touched him. By sunset, they guided him, gently, reverently, to the forest's edge. The ground shifted there, roots writhing subtly, rearranging themselves into a narrow path that had not existed moments before. The air shimmered beyond the trees, reality thinning like stretched fabric. An old woman stepped forward, her voice low and calm, as though speaking to a child being put to sleep. "Do not fight it. Do not run. The forest hates resistance." Whispers began threading through Leonard's thoughts, memories slipping, his name sounding unfamiliar when he tried to say it aloud. With no one willing to stop him and no strength left to argue, Leonard stepped forward. The forest accepted him instantly, the path sealed behind him without a sound, and Hollowmere slept peacefully that night, protected once more. Leonard did not walk through Hollowroot so much as he was absorbed by it, the forest folding inward behind him until the village, the path, and even the concept of leaving dissolved into something distant and unreal. The trees were impossibly tall, their trunks spiraling subtly as though grown under twisted rules of geometry, bark etched with the same ancient symbol, now burning faintly beneath Leonard's skin. Light filtered through the canopy in sickly shafts, illuminating drifting motes that moved with intent rather than chance.
Every step he took felt anticipated, the ground firming beneath his feet as if the forest wished to guide him while simultaneously weighing his worth. Sounds behaved strangely. His footsteps arrived late. His breathing echoed from directions that made no sense, and whispers crept through the undergrowth, not speaking words, yet conveying meaning all the same. Memories began slipping at the edges, faces from his past blurred, names losing weight, while new images pressed in, visions of people he had never met, walking this same path across centuries, some calm, some terrified, some reverent.
He realized with mounting dread that Hollowroot did not forget. It stored, it layered lives the way soil layered bones. Time thickened as Leonard moved deeper. He passed trees grown around rusted weapons, cracked armor, fragments of old altars, and human remains fused seamlessly into wood and root, preserved not as trophies, but as components. The forest was not consuming them, it was incorporating them.
The whispers sharpened as he reached a clearing where the air vibrated faintly, the ground opening into a vast depression like a wound that had never healed. At its center rose the hollow heart, a colossal root structure spiraling upward and downward simultaneously, defying depth, its surface pulsing with dull inner light. Leonard felt it recognize him instantly. Pain lanced through his chest as the mark flared violently, spreading thin branching lines across his ribs and spine. He collapsed, breath torn from his lungs as the forest spoke, not in sound, but in certainty. Balance must be kept. Protection must be paid for.
Hollowmere survived because the forest remembered every sacrifice, every promise fulfilled, every debt collected. Leonard was not the first marked, but something about him was different. The forest hesitated, sifting through his memories with invasive precision, tasting his fears, his regrets, his quiet longing to matter. Shapes emerged from the shadows, figures half-formed from bark, bone, and shadow, wearing faces borrowed from those who had entered before. Some watched silently, others whispered warnings too late to be useful. Leonard understood then that those who entered were not lost, they were repurposed. Guardians, anchors, living seals holding something far older and far worse beneath the roots. The hollow heart pulsed harder, revealing glimpses of what lay below, an ancient presence bound not by chains, but by accumulated lives, a god or force that fed on imbalance, entropy, and fear. Hollowroot was not evil, it was containment, and Leonard had been chosen because the bindings were weakening. Roots surged upward,
wrapping around his limbs, piercing his skin without blood, threading into muscle and nerve with surgical inevitability. He screamed, but the forest muffled it, reshaping his voice into a resonance that sank into the soil. Knowledge flooded him, rituals never written, histories never spoken, futures branching into infinite possibilities. He saw Hollowmere thriving or rotting depending on the strength of the seal. He saw other villages erased entirely when balance failed. He saw himself standing at the edge of the forest decades from now, unchanged, watching another marked soul approach. The transformation was not instant, it was deliberate. Pain gave way to numb clarity as his heartbeat slowed, synchronizing not with his body, but with the hollow heart itself. When the roots finally withdrew, Leonard remained kneeling, altered in ways he could feel but not fully comprehend. He rose slowly, no longer lost within Hollowroot, no longer entirely himself. The whispers softened, satisfied for now. Above, the canopy shifted, allowing a rare shaft of true sunlight to touch the clearing. Balance had been restored, for a time. And somewhere far away, in a village that would never know his fate, Hollowmere slept peacefully once more. Leonard no longer walked the forest as a visitor, but as a fault line within it, every step sending subtle tremors through Hollowroot, as though reality itself was recalculating around his presence. The mark beneath his skin no longer burned, it whispered, a constant low murmur threading thought into instinct, memory into warning. The trees bent slightly as he passed, not in reverence, but in acknowledgement, their roots shifting beneath the soil like veins adjusting to a new pulse. Yet something was wrong. The forest's rhythm stuttered. Whispers overlapped where they once harmonized. Shadows lingered longer than they should, and the hollow heart's steady cadence faltered, skipping beats like a dying god. Leonard felt it before he understood it. The seal was holding, but barely. The ancient presence beneath the roots was learning. It pressed upward, not with force, but with curiosity, probing the bindings, testing the new component that Leonard had become. Visions assaulted him without warning. He saw Hollowmere frozen in time, villagers standing motionless as bark crept over their skin. He saw the forest expanding, swallowing fields, roads, entire cities, not as conquest, but as correction. He saw himself split across possibilities, guardian, failure, catalyst. The weight of choice pressed heavier than the roots ever had. Drawn by an instinct that was no longer fully his own, Leonard returned to the hollow heart, finding the clearing transformed. The ground had cracked, symbols bleeding dim light through widening fractures, and the figures of former guardians stood closer now, their forms more solid, their eyes filled with something like urgency. They did not speak aloud, they showed him memories. Ages ago, the forest had not been a prison, but a sanctuary, built around a pact between humanity and an old power that promised balance in exchange for remembrance. Over time, fear had replaced reverence. Sacrifice became secrecy. The pact eroded. The thing beneath the roots adapted, feeding not only on imbalance, but on the lies meant to contain it. Leonard realized the horrifying truth. The seal could not last because it was built on denial. The forest was suffocating under centuries of half-truths. The ancient presence surged, and this time Leonard felt it clearly. Not rage, not hunger, but a vast alien disappointment. It had kept its end of the bargain. Humanity had not. The hollow heart split open, revealing a depth that bent perception, an abyss layered with memories, screams muted into echoes of choice. Roots wrapped Leonard again, not to bind, but to anchor, as the presence spoke directly into him, its voice vast and fragmented, offering not escape, but alignment. Become more, become less, rewrite the pact.
Leonard understood what was being asked. To stabilize the seal permanently, something had to change. Not another sacrifice, but a revelation. The truth of Hollowroot would have to surface. The forest could no longer hide. Fear surged as he realized the cost. Knowledge would shatter Hollowmere. Faith would break. Panic would spread. Yet without it, the forest would eventually consume everything anyway. As the presence pressed closer to breaking free, Leonard made his choice. He reached outward through roots and memory, sending visions racing toward the village, dreams seeded with symbols, whispers turning into warnings, half-remembered myths awakening in sleeping minds. The forest screamed, not in pain, but in resistance, as centuries of silence cracked. The hollow heart flared violently, light and shadow colliding in a storm that shook the canopy. Leonard felt himself tearing, stretched between human will and ancient duty, but he held fast, forcing the truth outward. When the shockwave finally subsided, the clearing lay still. The figures of former guardians faded, their purpose fulfilled at last. Leonard remained standing, alone before the hollow heart, forever changed. Somewhere beyond the trees, Hollowmere stirred, its people waking with dread and revelation, burning in equal measure. The seal still held, but now the countdown had begun. The hollow heart's pulse grew monstrous, shaking the forest to its roots. Leonard stumbled, his breath ragged, as the ground beneath him cracked open in impossible patterns. Shadows of forgotten guardians swirled around him, enormous and grotesque, their forms flickering between man, beast, and something beyond comprehension. The air burned with cold fire, and every sound became a roar, every whisper a scream that gnawed at his mind. Lightning tore the sky, revealing glimpses of ancient ruins, shattered temples, and statues of gods long dead, eyes glowing with fury. From the forest floor, spectral hands emerged, reaching for him, writhing as if the earth itself had come alive. Leonard tried to run, but the paths twisted impossibly, looping back, collapsing, vanishing. Time fractured, moments repeated, overlapped, stretched. He saw visions of the past, every village destroyed, every guardian fallen, every foolish seeker who had touched the hollow heart before him. Each memory slammed into his mind like a hammer, forcing him to witness his own death countless times. The forest wasn't just alive, it was conscious, wrathful, omniscient. A massive shadow, darker than night and heavier than stone, rose from the hollow heart, towering over the trees, its voice a chorus of all the dead. You sought power, you sought knowledge, now you belong. The ground split beneath Leonard, swallowing him in a storm of fire, ice, and shadows. His screams joined the eternal chorus as the hollow heart's pulse reached its peak, detonating reality itself. When the storm subsided, nothing remained. The forest, the heart, Leonard, all erased or absorbed into a timeless void. Only whispers lingered, carried by a wind that knew no direction, promising that the hollow heart would awaken again. And one day, another seeker would stumble into its catastrophic, mythic embrace.